Thank you for coming to the Goldwater Scholar Community 2020 webinar. We're going to start off by introducing everyone. Fix this here. All right, so I'm going to introduce myself and then we'll go around. I'm Daniele Moro. I go to Boise State University and study computer science. My Goldwater year is 2018. And I'm really excited to be here. I'll be kind of managing the Twitch and everything else, and we'll be going to presentation soon. But Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself? Oh, looks like we can't hear you right
Aaron,
now.
you're muted.
There we
Oops,
go.
sorry about that. Sorry about that. Hey everyone, my name is Aaron Sandoval. I go to school at the University of Florida. I study stem cell biology and regenerative medicine, and I won the Goldwater in 2018.
Hi, everybody. My name's Matt Schainbauer. I'm a 2018 Goldwater Scholar from the University of Notre Dame, and I study mathematics.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Weirton. I'm a graduate student at Harvard University, studying a PhD in cell biology, and I was a 2018 scholar.
Hey everyone, I'm Zoheb Harani. I'm a first-year graduate student at Northwestern University, and I won the Goldwater Scholar in 2018 at Trinity University in chemistry.
Hi everybody, I'm Mariah Dixon. I'm from Western Illinois University and I'm a senior studying microbiology, and I won the Goldwater in 2019.
Awesome, thank you. So yes, we're all Goldwater Scholar Council members, and we're gonna, of course, during this webinar, be talking about the GSC and what we've done so far. Before we officially start, if you want to ask questions throughout the presentation, make a Twitch account and then type your question in the chat. Then at the end of the presentation, we're going to go through the chat, answer as many questions as we can, and have a discussion. One quick question that I saw was about being recorded. Yes, this is being recorded, and we'll post it afterwards. So let's keep going. Okay. All right.
All right, everybody, my mic's not muted anymore. So I'm gonna walk us through kind of a basic outline of how this whole webinar is gonna go. We're anticipating 35 to 40 minutes of presentation, followed by 20, 25 minutes of questions at the end. So we're gonna begin with why and how the Goldwater Scholar community was created, some of our accomplishments so far, next steps in future leadership, including how you can get involved. And then to end, like I said, we're going to do an audience Q&A. So get those questions going in the chat. So why create a community at all? So there have been 9,047 scholars awarded since the inception of the Goldwater in 1986. And a lot of those, especially the older ones, are now professors and industry leaders. So it'd actually be really great if there was a way for us young scholars to connect with them. But previously, there didn't exist a way for scholars to connect even with one another. And pre-2018, scholars received only money. And if you were fully funded, you didn't even receive that. So the GSC was founded behind the idea of scholars helping scholars. At the end of the day, it's a scholar-driven initiative, and it is what you make of it. So you can be as active as you want, and you can help guide the future of this great organization, this very young organization as well. So how did the GSC start? I met Dr. Matea at NCUR 2018. NCUR is the National Conference on Undergraduate Research. I had just recently won my Goldwater Scholarship, like I think the month prior. And I was just at NCUR. I had no idea that Dr. Matea was going to be there. I saw on the schedule that he was giving an informational session on the scholarship. So I went, introduced myself, and then I proposed some ideas for what would later become the Goldwater Scholar community. And a lot of the ideas actually came to fruition, thankfully. But I couldn't have done any of it by myself. I definitely needed a team to help me out, which is where Matt Schainbauer comes in next.
Right, thanks, Aaron. So shortly after Aaron met Dr. Matea at NCUR, Dr. Matea came to Notre Dame's campus for a reason unrelated to me. This was shortly after I had won the scholarship in 2018. And at that time I was sort of confused by like what Aaron said. You won the scholarship and you got some money, and then that's kind of it. And then he started talking about these ideas about a Goldwater Scholar community, and I knew that I wanted to be on board right away. So I knew that this was a good thing, but it wasn't so clear to me what exactly everybody would want out of a Goldwater Scholar community. So in order to figure out what that was, we asked. So we sent out a huge survey monkey survey to see, what do the existing scholars want from a Goldwater Scholar community? And the survey said a bunch of things, which are going to be the themes for the rest of the discussion. So people wanted to have meetups for Goldwater Scholars where they could, have networking opportunities. They wanted a Twitter account, a hashtag, a newsletter, a database of contact info. A national convention for networking would be awesome. And one of the things that was maybe more manageable about all of the above was a Slack channel. So all of you who are here are familiar with that. And one of the people who suggested that we have a Slack channel right away was none other than our webinar leader right now, Daniel Morrow. And so Daniel is going to talk to all of you about Slack in just a second, but I want to make it clear that this initial survey that we got sort of laid the framework for what we plan to do for the remainder of our time with the Goldwater Scholar community. And a lot of it we were able to get done, but there's a lot still to be done in the future. So look forward to that, especially towards the end of the presentation. Daniel, take it away.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. So yeah, I was initially brought on board because I wanted to explore this idea of using Slack as a communications platform. And if you guys have already seen Slack, you've probably seen how powerful and kind of easy to use it is. At least I think so. But those of you who haven't heard of Slack, Slack is a communications platform which allows people to message back and forth. And this can actually be, I think, more comfortable than something like email or Facebook or anything else because it functions almost like as a texting sort of communications where you write short messages to one another and people can react to it with emoticons or reply. And it's organized fairly well in these separate channels. So so yes, discussion on Slack is grouped into these topic-specific messaging threads called channels. And we have all kinds of channels from general discussion to field-specific channels and even kind of fun channels. We have 81 channels so far. And these are kind of our top ones. So you can see here the general discussion has right now over 1,000 members. And then you can kind of, if you look here, keep going through all the way to very small channels that are specific for certain regions. But I thought what would be fun is if we had a little demo of Slack. So I have it pulled open right here. Let's see if you guys can see that. Make sure that looks good. Okay, so you can see here, this is a general discussion. So when you first kind of log into Slack, this is what you'll see. And here you see we actually advertise the webinar on the Slack for people to join. And then you can also find channel-specific information, like how many members does a channel have? What information can you find about it? And here you can see all the different channels, right? So I've starred a couple channels, but you can also explore all the other ones. So for example, the biggest channels are general discussion and introductions. Introductions people to introduce themselves. So if you're new to the Slack, please go to this channel. Tell us what your research is about. Tell us what you've been doing, right? And then we can kind of spark that discussion. Some more career-oriented channels include the graduate school discussion, where people talk about, what are some tips for getting into grad school? How do you decide the best graduate program? All that useful stuff. Then we have job opportunities, and this is for if certain people connected to the community are like, hey, I want to look and go to the Goldwater Scholar Network and either hire someone or look for a job. This is the perfect place to do it, and we have a lot of members on here. Then there's also field-specific channels, like, for example, computer science or medicine. And here you can find field experts, right? People who really know their stuff in these specific fields. And discussions range from, papers to, specific new technologies that are coming out, all that kind of stuff. Another kind of group of channels that we have is regional channels. So for example, the San Francisco Bay Area or Boston or a few others. And here is actually a big place that meetups happen and meetups get organized. And we'll talk about that later. So if you're in a specific area, you can find a channel close to you or even maybe make one, right? All the members actually have the power to make their own channels. And a few other kind of interesting ones. We have kind of relevant channels like talking about the recent COVID-19 pandemic. Oh, looks like it's loading in. And then some more fun ones like, so this is one of my favorite channels. For some reason, it's not loading right now. But Zoom meetings is a place for people to talk about how they can get together on a Zoom call, especially during now that we're in quarantine. The games are happening on there and people are connecting. And then my favorite one is probably the memes channel, and this is where people post all the memes that they like to talk about specific to their fields. So those are all the channels, and then before I finish this demo, I wanted to talk about notifications. And notifications are actually one of the kind of the biggest things that people ask us about because it's hard to tell who am I contacting and when am I getting the right notifications. So if you're at a channel, anytime you can click on the info button here, and then it'll bring you this bar, and you can click more and notifications. Here you can make every channel, you can tell it if you want to get notified for every message, the mentions, or nothing. Mentions is what happens when, for example, I use the @channel here. This specifically notifies everyone in the channel if they have the @message turned on or every new message. And I can also do an with a specific person, and then they will also get that notification. Or you can also choose to kind of mute a channel and click on nothing here. Another important place to change your notifications is if you go to preferences here on the top left. And here you can see, okay, what do you want to be notified about? Everything, direct messages, nothing. What about threads you're following? Something cool is that you can actually change the keywords that you want people to, or you want to be notified for. So for example, I have a few ones here. For example, I'm interested in machine learning. So anytime that anyone ever types machine learning, I will get a ping and I can look at that message and respond to it. You can set do not disturb hours, and I think an important one here is sending email notifications. So that means you don't even necessarily need to be logged into the Slack. If you check this off, when you're inactive, which means if you haven't been logged on to the Slack, it'll send you an email if someone mentions you. Okay, so, and then you can mute things. Another thing here, really important, there's a new Slack feature called a channel browser. And if you go here, you can actually sort from, for example, most members to fewest. And remember that list I showed you earlier? This is it right here. And you can search for something specific, right? Maybe you are looking for a specific field-specific channel or region, right? But before you make any channel, you should check this first. Go here and see what relevant channels that are similar to what you are maybe thinking of starting or thinking of checking out. You check this first to see if it already exists. And you see we already have a bunch of channels with thousands of members. So the other thing, you can also make channels if you go here and you click the little plus button, and then here you can create a channel, call it something, write a description. If your channel doesn't grow and it's kind of stagnant, we might delete it after a while, but most likely, if it grows, then we'll keep it there and that'll keep engaging discussion. And like I said before, we have something like over 80 channels right now. And finally, remember to download the desktop app of Slack. I have Slack actually downloaded on my phone, my desktop, my laptop, pretty much everywhere. And so that allows me to really easily tap into the community and engage in discussions and get notifications as well. So that is kind of a demo of Slack, and I'll be able to answer some more questions at the end, but hopefully that gives you a clear idea. So how has our Slack platform been going so far? So you can see here, this is the blue line is the total membership that we have. And it's been growing ever since 2018. And you can see kind of these little jumps here. And those jumps are mostly caused by new scholars joining every year, right? When a new batch of scholars is announced, then everyone joins and there's new membership and also more engagement. So the red line here is our weekly active members. So that's the amount of people that log in every week. The yellow is even more than that. It's the weekly members posting messages. So these are people who are actually engaging and discussing in the Slack. And so, of course, it's a smaller percentage of members, but I think it's still fairly interesting to see that it is constant, right? And especially when the new scholars join, not only do the new scholars start engaging in discussion, but we're also seeing previous members who've maybe logged into the Slack and not used it in a while. Suddenly, all these new scholars join and everyone comes back in. And we've seen that especially recently in the past few weeks where there's been a lot more discussion. So that's really exciting. What else? So these are the total messages sent. You can see here we're at almost 20,000 total messages. And that's growing, especially in this recent period, kind of kept growing exponentially. You can see the yellow here is the number of messages in direct messages. So that means messages just from one person to another. Red is private channels and blue is public channels. So it's interesting, I think, to see that most messages that are sent in private messages. This means that people are creating one-on-one connections with one another, right? And maybe even creating these personal connections that can last, far into the future, that are very important for a career. And obviously that's been growing as well. And then this is a kind of a similar graph showing that distribution between direct messages, public messages, and private messages. So even though, I should note here, even though majority of messages are sent in kind of a direct messages, um, the majority of views of messages are seen in the public channels, right? And that makes sense because when someone sends a message in a public channel, it's usually something short, maybe a blog post or an article or some question, and lots of people see that question and respond to it. All right. And yep, go ahead.
So Aaron here again. I'm just going to piggyback off of what Daniel was saying. So something that was born out of the whole Slack was actually the desire for some webinars where people could talk, kind of like this webinar right now. And so they're mainly organized by current scholars, and the panels were almost always composed of past scholars who have gone on to do the things that we hope to do. So one of the very first, we've actually done 2 panels now on graduate school. So current graduate students came and talked to some of the scholars who were applying and talked about applying and picking programs and writing personal statements. We had a webinar on alternative careers where people who were doing things with their PhD outside of academic research came and talked to us and told us about the different opportunities available to us outside of academia. We had a really helpful one on UK fellowships. So for example, the Marshall, the Rhodes, the Gates Cambridge, the Churchill. And there were a ton of people really interested in that. I was specifically interested in that because I was applying at that time. I got a lot of out that webinar. A lot of the advice that was shared by some of the people who had won the scholarships in the past, I used when I was writing my personal statements, when I was applying to the programs, when I was interviewing at the programs. So webinars like that can be really helpful. We had a webinar again from the Department of Defense. They talked about different funding opportunities offered through the DoD. And then of course, right now we're doing the Goldwater Scholar Community webinar. Recordings of all the past webinars are available on the YouTube channel, and I've left a really short link there if you guys want to check those out and watch them over again. And just like those were all recorded, this one will also be recorded and posted at a later time. I just want to say that we're looking forward to doing more and more webinars in the coming months. Some on topics that we've already done that were very popular, but then also on new topics that you guys might even suggest. So really, whatever you guys want to see on the webinars, we can try to do those for you guys.
Great. So another initiative that we've been working on, shortly after founding this whole Goldwater Scholar community, is our social media platforms. So, for example, you might have seen in some of the emails I sent all you guys, links to the Twitter, the Facebook, and the LinkedIn. The Twitter and the Facebook, you're going to see more like highlights of scholars and content that Linda will be talking about in just a second. LinkedIn is there more for professional networking. So, it's happened a few times where I see someone on LinkedIn and see you're both members of the Goldwater Scholar community, and that's, super cool. So we have, this is something that, we're looking to grow more in the future and get better at, of course. I'm frankly not so much of a social media person myself, but I know that it's important and it's really cool. We've had a lot of good help doing it. And one particular person who's been very helpful is Linda, who is actually the graphic designer for all things social media, made that nice banner there. So Linda's going to tell you a little bit more about the kinds of content that we have on social media.
Thanks so much, Matt. So I want to show you guys some examples of posts that we've made on social media. Firstly, one of our biggest activities has been creating scholar highlights, which are detailed biographies showcasing the diverse backgrounds and accomplishments of different scholars. I'm showing here our most recent one about Anastasios Carles. These highlights are posted regularly, and you can find them on all our main social media platforms. Moving forward, we will write shorter bios because they're currently quite work intensive to make, but we still plan on keeping them going. Secondly, we always post pictures of scholars at conferences and meetings because it's both a great way to highlight your peers' activities and to represent the Goldwater community at large networking events. So here we can see a photo of Matt at the 2020 Joint Mathematics Meetings, which is a large math conference that he attended and also ran at the Goldwater Brief Net. So thirdly, we use social media to make big announcements. For example, the post here about some scholars who recently won the Churchill and Marshall scholarships, which are major accomplishments because these are very big and competitive awards. And overall, we like to use social media to really build a community of familiarity, support, and encouragement. And yet another thing we do is what Zoheb is going to talk about next, which are podcasts.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. So, in addition to the social media, we're also sharing what our community is up to through our podcast show called Goldwater Scholar Highlights. We have some pretty deep interviews with a range of scholars. Some are in graduate school, others are postdocs, and some are well off into their careers. So far, we have 5 interviews online, and there are many more to come. So, just to give you some examples, the first interview we posted was with Beth Luoma. You can see her as number 5 on that list. Beth was named a scholar in 2008, and she's now actually the assistant director of the women's health research at Yale. Beth and I had a great time discussing transitioning to graduate school, what education looks like in STEM, gender biases in research, like what postgrad is like, and a bunch of other topics. Another cool conversation was with Andrew Madison, a 2007 scholar. He's number 3 on that list. He's now actually working as a principal scientist at a startup company called Applied Biomath, working to develop mechanistic models, um, mathematically optimizing these drug mechanisms. And he actually did a portion of his PhD working in industry at a startup, which I didn't even know was remotely possible. So we've hit some pretty interesting topics in these podcast episodes. Um, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, give us a Google search and you can find and subscribe us on Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, or the Apple Podcast app. And you might just prepare yourself for graduate school or your later career just sitting around in quarantine mode. So like I said, we get pretty deep in the conversations. If you look at the right of the slide, these are just some of the topics that we cover. They range from handling stress, post-grad challenges, work-life balance, but I'm also really interested in the feedback from the community about what you guys want. We sent out this survey to a fraction of you guys, and to those who have responded, thank you so much. We really appreciate the feedback. The survey will actually be posted on Slack today, and we'd really love to hear your thoughts. And just lastly, feel free to reach out to me on Slack. I'm going to be lurking the Zoom channels to play some remote quarantine games, hopefully some Secret Hitler. So I'd love to run into you in chat. All right, now I'll hand it off to Daniel, who will talk to you more about the Goldwater Scholar website.
Thanks, Soheb. Yeah, you're right. The Zoom meetings channel is going to be pretty fun, so you guys should check it out. But yeah, so another important aspect of the GSC is that we want to have a central location where all of us can kind of come together in addition to the Slack. That can kind of give us kind of give everyone a rough overview of what we've done and places that you guys can connect with us. So we decided to make a website, and what I'm showing you here is just a draft of the website. It obviously needs a lot more improvement, but you can see that we want to have a page where the talks about the Goldwater Scholarship and what the community is all about. We also want to store webinars on there, right? All the webinars we've done that we've recorded, even this one. Um, it should have a place to live where anyone can access it easily. Right. We also want to link to our Slack, our social media, and also maybe a news a section where we can put scholar highlights and also news about our national meetups or even regional meetups. So this is the draft of the website, but we our next steps actually, and we've started to do this already, but to team up with the Goldwater Education Support Fund. So this means working with past Goldwater scholars who are now professors, Kevin Haworth and Scott Annan. And they've started a WordPress site where that is eventually going to become a more official Goldwater Scholar community site that is also going to have other stuff, for example, places to donate for the Goldwater Scholarship. But important for us is that we want to have a feature of member login. So that means you could log in with username, password, and then see an entire directory of past Goldwater scholars. And that means that you could figure out someone who's in your field or in a similar stage of life, and maybe you could contact them, right? Or reach out to them in some way. And then we also want to have various pages like an about page, a vignette page, a webinar page, and also links to our social media and even the podcast that Zoeb was talking about. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but we're really excited about this, and I think all of your ideas are welcomed, especially as this is still in kind of a draft mode, at least for us. So and then another, I think, even bigger aspect of the Goldwater Scholarship is the meetups, right? So like I was showing you before with the regional meetups channels, people all over the US, Goldwater scholars, have figured out a way to connect with one another in real life. This often happens at research conferences or if people are in an internship in the same city. And by messaging each other, then they can get together, get to know one another, and it's really exciting, right? So you can see here some at Los Angeles, UCLA, New York City. This is the one that I helped organize in San Francisco, where we were actually able to go to the roof of the Google building in downtown San Francisco and had quite the view. And then we also kind of went around, toured the city, ate some cool snacks. And then here's another one at GCURS, which is a research conference. Here's another big one in Boston, which Matt will talk more about. And then this is 2019 NCUR. And so you can see kind of some of our bigger scholars here. So yeah, meetups all over the world. And then I'll let Matt take over about an idea we've had, realizing that these regional meetups are so important that what if we had a national meetup?
Right. Thanks, Daniel. So yeah, these regional meetups have been a lot of fun. And actually at the Boston meetup that you can see right now, I was talking to a guy in the background there who's, I had actually met him a while back about, just the Goldwater Scholar community in general and what we'd like to see in the future. And, thinking back to that first survey that we sent out, I thought the thing that we would really like to do is a national meetup of Goldwater scholars. And he happened to know someone at the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, where and so we wrote a grant for this national Goldwater meetup, which was the dream we had had from the very beginning, and we ended up winning a grant for $50,000 to get all of you to the same location for the first ever national Goldwater Summit. And we were very excited. We were going to host this sort of on top of the National Conference in Undergraduate Research, NCUR 2020, the place where Aaron had originally met Dr. Matea. We had all these plans set up. Many of you know about this. I'm sure some of you were even planning on coming. And then something happened. And so yes, the coronavirus. We couldn't reasonably go to an event that was canceled because of the pandemic that is at the forefront of all of our minds right now. So this was really unfortunate for those of us who are planning on going. But for the new scholars, this is actually kind of good news. And the reason that it's good news is because this means that the money that would have gone towards that conference would go towards the 2021 National Goldwater Scholar Summit that we're anticipating to happen at. So the hope is that this will be rescheduled to NCUR 2021. Luckily, this is in Long Beach, California, so it's going to be beautiful there. We've got a lot of events that we will very likely initiate once this conference actually happens. We'll have a kickoff event with icebreakers, dinner, and we'd like to form Goldwater action groups so we can find ways the Goldwater Scholar community can serve both the existing Goldwater Scholar group and the scientific community more broadly. We'll hand out Goldwater t-shirts, which you'll hear more about in just a second. All of the Goldwater scholars there will be able to talk to potential future scholars, potential applicants who are at NCUR and will be seeing the presentation that Dr. Mateo will be giving. We'll be getting a free dinner out. We'll talk about our action group plans, and then very likely we'll be doing a recreational activity in California, which hopefully it'll be nice and sunny, and that'll be a lot of fun. So just keep that on your minds when it comes out. In the fall, you'll have the opportunity to apply to NCUR to give a presentation. And then it'll be really easy. You'll be able to present your research and interact with the Goldwater Scholar community, and it's going to be a ton of fun. So look forward to that in the coming months. One thing that, like I said, we'll be able to do at the event is we'll be able to give out Goldwater Scholar shirts. So if any of you saw the message that I posted on Slack today, it's about a form indicating interest in buying these shirts. So this is a really cool design that actually our next speaker, Mariah, designed herself. And so these will be available as a t-shirt, a long sleeve tee, crew neck, as a hoodie. And basically, I mean, we won't be able to provide them for you, but if you're interested in buying these, you can pay for them directly through Custom Ink. So if you are interested, please fill out that form because we need confirmed purchases so that we can get the price down as low as possible. So yeah, please do that as soon as you can. In the meantime, though, Mariah, the designer of these t-shirts, is going to tell you more about what we're looking for the future of the Goldwater Scholar community.
I forgot, I'm muted. Sorry. Thank you, Matt. As Matt said, I'm going to talk about some ideas that we had for the future of GSC. And as you just heard throughout this entire webinar so far, we talked about a lot of the amazing things that the Goldwater Scholar Community Council has already accomplished. And again, as Matt mentioned earlier, when they were talking about the survey, there are a number of things that we were able to accomplish, but there's also some that we haven't been able to. And then I'm sure there's also ideas that we haven't even thought about or haven't even appeared on surveys yet that some of you might really be interested in starting or leading and taking that initiative. So some of the things that we're still looking to create that appeared on our survey include like a formalized mentorship program. We're also looking to do more meetups and kind of create a more defined regional situation for regional coordinators. We're also hoping to do more webinars in a variety of topics. So as Aaron mentioned before, there's the graduate school, the alternative careers, and then even this one and a number of other ones. But perhaps we could also include an NSF GRFP. We have a channel about it. There's a variety of different webinars we could look at and include. We're also hoping to propose a new Goldwater Scholar Community Council leadership structure and find some more resources for older scholars and get more past scholars involved in the Slack and creating and building this community, and also increasing the representation among scholars, and basically anything else that any Goldwater scholar can think of to increase this the efficiency of this community and really make sure that everyone is getting what we want out of it. So some ideas that we had for organization. Now this is just a proposed scheme. It's by no means the actual scheme that we're going to use. It'll probably evolve even once we do decide on something. But something that we're hoping to implement is a structured organization for the Goldwater Scholar Community Council. So we're hoping, I'm just going to explain some of the things that we do currently do as council members and some of the things that we might be hoping to include. So at the top of that list, there's the officers. Again, there doesn't have to be formalized officer positions. It just was created for the distribution of tasks, such as a treasurer could be in charge of grant funding and budgeting, that Matt mentioned before when he was discussing the Moore Foundation. An event coordinator would be kind of the spearhead behind the NCUR or the national meetups. They could also plan monthly events and even have an events committee that could participate in things like the Zoom channel to work on the Zoom meetings that we're planning, including the game night. They can also be a part of, like, the book club is planning to have, or the book recommendations channel is planning to have a standing book club. There's a variety of different things that can happen there. also potentially a secretary who would really be in charge of meeting minutes and organization, potentially even creating a calendar that we can send out to all the scholars so everyone can see when events are occurring. And a regional coordinator chair member who will act as the liaison between all of the regional coordinators and the main council, and a webmaster like Linda and Matt were describing and Daniel were describing before, with the website and social media, really kind of taking over that and running with it. And so essentially these positions all serve the community council, which then serve the community. It's really going down, what matters the most is creating this community that will then serve the Barry Goldwater Scholarship Foundation. That's what we're really a part of, is we're scholars creating this community to further the foundation and further the scholar program. So again, one of those other things that I mentioned before was the ideas for regions and creating a formalized structure for the regional coordinators. Right now we have it kind of on a city basis, which is working. As you saw before, we had regional meetups in Boston and Los Angeles, UCLA, NYC, San Francisco. There's been a Chicago one in the works for a while now. So there's the citywide regional meetups are occurring, but another thing that we're hoping to do is maybe expand it into this idea of designated state regions so that we can include everyone, so that you're not just, if you're a scholar from a state that has just a lower density, then you can still participate in these regional meetups and feel like you're a part of a regional channel. And that's just one of the ideas. And again, it can we can kind of run with it and see where that goes. But yeah, so that's an idea for the regions. Another idea we had was a formalized mentorship program. Now this one has actually come up a lot. It was mentioned in the very first survey that Matt and Aaron and Daniel sent out, but it's also been mentioned again, even in the Goldwater Scholar Community Council. And again, even just talking to some of the newer members, there's a real desire to have a formal mentorship program that will match newer scholars with past scholars. And one of the things that we need to do that is we need more information about past scholars. So we need to create a program that that connects to our past scholars. And then we also want to create this mentorship matching program that will not only necessarily pair you with somebody who is in your field, but could also be in a certain station in life. So I'm going into my first year of graduate studies next year, and I might want to connect with a mentor who's in their postdoc so that I have a better understanding of the process of transitioning from a PhD to a postdoc. Or you can be an undergraduate looking for a graduate mentor or even a professional mentor. So there's a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different ways that that mentorship matching program can go. And that's definitely one of the things that we're looking to expand in the future. So overall, what does this mean and how does it relate to you? So you are the future of the Goldwater Scholar community. And that's one of the things that we're really looking to augment here, is including everyone as part of the Goldwater Scholar community and the development. So we're also looking to transition to a new Goldwater Scholar Community Council. Some of our current council members have, like Aaron said, he's got the marshal, so he won't even be in the States. Neither will Matt, and Daniel is transitioning to a full-time job and then also planning to do some graduate studies. So there's a lot going on and a lot of transition happening. So we're hoping to have this transition occur within the Goldwater Scholar Community Council. So we need you to apply. So for you to apply, you need to start with thinking of ways that you can enhance the Goldwater Scholar community. You can think about any of the topics that we proposed and talked about today. You can think about how you can lead them, how you can implement new projects, or you can grow existing ideas. And you're going to want to pitch your ideas to the Goldwater Scholar Future Directions channel. It's on the Slack. You can go and add yourself to it and then start this discussion in there. We also want you to stay involved with Slack and social media. Involvement in Slack and social media shows your interest and initiative, and that's what some of the things that we're looking for in the next generation of council members. We're also, we'll be sending an email and Slack messages out on Monday, this next Monday with an application for the Goldwater Scholar Community Council. So be prepared, because we're planning to make this transition happen in June. And now we're not just gonna give you the position and just say, here, like, go for it. No, we're gonna help you, and we're gonna be there to help with the transition. And of course, Aaron, Matt, and Daniel, since they really are kind of the founding fathers of this project, they really wanna see this transition go smoothly. And so they'll definitely be a part of that. And we're excited to see where this all can go and how you can get involved.
Thank you, Mariah. Yeah, you're completely right, and I think what we've grown here so far, all of us as a community, is really valuable. Yeah, no, this is really exciting. And now we're at the phase of question and answer. So please send your messages on Twitch, and we're gonna answer them here in a moment. So we're gonna take a quick few second pause, and we'll rearrange for questions.
Daniela, this is John Mateo.
Yes, Dr. Mateo, we can hear you.
Okay, if I could have a couple of minutes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Now that I'm technically with you. Sorry about the technical glitch earlier on. I'm John Mateo. I'm the president of the Goldwater Foundation. The first thing I want to do is welcome all of the new 2020 scholars to the Goldwater community. We're excited to have you with us. You're an amazing group. You have a wonderful future ahead of you. The reviewers this year were particularly impressed by all of the accomplishments that you've already achieved. So we're excited to have you in this Goldwater Scholar community. It's hard to believe, as you sat here for the last 45 minutes or so, that none of this existed 2 years ago. I met up with Aaron, Daniela, and Matt, and have been delighted with what they've been able to accomplish over the last few years. Mariah, Linda, and Zoe have joined the group and are helping move the community forward. And what we're hoping is that many of you in the new 2020 class will join us in advancing the initiatives that have already been started, and to think about new initiatives that the community can develop. I've enjoyed greatly working with the 6 Goldwater scholars you've heard tonight, and I look forward to continuing to work with the Goldwater Scholar community and all of the new folks that we hope will join us in this work. So congratulations again on being named a 2020 Scholar, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mateo. And hopefully you can stay around for a few questions. Let's bring everyone on here. Great. Okay, so we have a few questions. First off, Mariah has a question she wants to address.
All right, hello. So I'd like to address, I think it's ZoDB97. I'm just guessing on the name. I'm sorry if I butchered it. But the question was, based on this leadership structure, would there be no president/chair, or would the chair of the regional coordinators act in that capacity? So just to start off with, so this proposed scheme is a proposed scheme by itself. So during the application process, you won't be applying for a position, at least not this year. So this year we're looking more for just individuals with initiative and motivation, and really showing their desire to be a part of the council. And you'll see a lot of that during the application when you read the written application. But in terms of president, when I thought about this, I didn't want to include a president because I didn't want one scholar to necessarily feel that they would have more power over another scholar. So that's why it's more of just a collaborative environment with just a distribution of tasks is really what it is. It's less so people in positions of power and more so about just how are we going to effectively distribute the tasks to people who have the skill set to do these things, because that's essentially what the council is doing right now. They're just doing it without having these designated positions. They kind of just know how to do it, but that's because this was their brainchild from the beginning. So that's what they've been doing this entire time.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So another question. Sorry, go ahead, Matt. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just want to answer some of those questions I'm seeing on Zoom very quickly. So one scholar asked if there's a required minimum for the degree level of members of the Goldwater Scholar Community Council. The answer is no, and definitely not, especially because if you remember, Aaron, Daniel, and I were all sophomores actually when we started getting involved in this whole thing. And frankly, like for those of you who are sophomores listening, we would be especially interested in you helping because, you know, that's more time is with you as an undergrad where you're going to be, you know, a real part of the Goldwater Scholar community. So, I mean, that being said, we love having PhD students who can help us out and professors and all those kinds of things. But anyone and everyone who's in the Goldwater Scholar community is welcome to apply. Also, I just want to say something quickly about activity with Goldwater applicants. So currently, we don't really touch that space right now. It's not our job so much to be advising students because we're not involved in the admissions decisions at all. We're here for the Goldwater scholars and the honorable mentions who have gone through the process right now. I mean, there's a possibility we could do that in the future, but currently that's not in the works.
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Matt just said. So I've seen there's a few questions about increasing underrepresented, I guess, groups in science. So yeah, like Matt said, we really can't choose the Goldwater scholars, but as part of the council, we can suggest to Dr. Mateja different initiatives that we think would bring underrepresented groups to the forefront and maybe give them a better shot at getting the scholarship. I know this year was the first year that schools were actually able to nominate 5 scholars, I believe, as long as one of those scholars was a transfer student. And that's one of the ways that the Goldwater Scholarship Foundation is trying to increase diversity and trying to make it so that there aren't any obstacles to winning a Goldwater scholarship. Other ideas we've had in the past are kind of reaching out to those schools who don't produce as many scholars, not because of the quality of the school, but more so because historically there haven't been any scholars from there. It's not really a well-known thing. Like if I hadn't heard about the scholarship early on when I was like early in my freshman year, I probably wouldn't have known to apply for my sophomore year. So things like that are something definitely we can do as scholars, just getting the word out more and letting more of our peers know about what a great opportunity this scholarship is for the sake of the money and the process of applying and also the community that comes with it. Dr. Mateja, do you have anything to add to that?
We're definitely interested in increasing the diversity of the Goldwater Scholar pool of applicants. You can certainly help us in that regard. You can't win a scholarship if you don't know about it or if you don't apply for it. So getting the word out is critical, and I can see the Goldwater Scholar community playing a very important role there.
Great. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I just saw another question that's a really quick answer. There was a question about whether or not the regions would be based on your home or your institute. Regions are essentially, you can join whatever region you want to be a part of. So, I mean, I go to school in Illinois, but I'm transitioning to Wisconsin, but I live in Illinois. And originally when there were separate chats for Chicago versus Wisconsin, I was in both of them, but now we've kind of merged them because looking at the new regional initiative. But say if you go to school in Boston, but your family lives in Nevada, then you can be a part of both of those regions easily. So
Very nice. So I believe, just looking here, we also had some other questions sent in before the webinar. So as you guys keep thinking of some other questions, I'll look here. First one is, how will the GSC connect us to future career opportunities? Matt, did you want to take that one?
Yeah. So the one obvious answer is we do have the channel for that. Daniel talked about that earlier in the presentation. And yeah, it's kind of cool to see like older Goldwater scholars interested in younger ones for hiring purposes. That being said, it's not quite as active as we would like, and the main reason is because it's very difficult. It has been difficult for us to reach out to older Goldwater scholars because the foundation, for understandable reasons, hasn't kept track of every single one of them throughout the years. So for those of you who are looking at getting involved in the future, we would really like to see good ideas for how we can sort of track down some of the older scholars and get them involved in the community.
Very nice. Another question I'm seeing, is there a list of current Goldwater scholars in academia with respective position and university? It would be phenomenal to connect with current professors and researcher, especially as I look towards graduate school. I'll take that one. That's an excellent question. And so far we have created a Google Sheet with some information on it. However, I don't believe it's completely up to date. So that's something that the website will also help with. Yeah, Matt, is there anything? Oh, you want?
Sorry, I'm being obnoxious. I did want to say that we actually have more than the spreadsheet. If you go to the user information page, there is this big PDF that has like a humongous list of Goldwater scholars that are on the channel, has their institutions, it has what they're interested in. Unfortunately, like you said, it's mostly younger scholars. And so those of you who filled out the form that I posted at the very bottom of that channel is like, you will be added to that list. And the plan is to have that PDF document continually updating as the years go on. And that way we'll be able to, years from now, especially, we'll be able to have a pretty comprehensive list of Goldwater scholars and where they all are right now.
Yeah. And this is also related to other questions I've seen, but if you are looking for advice in a specific field or in a specific area, that's what the Slack channel is for. So go to the Slack channel for your specific field and ask questions. Someone might respond to you, and they're already on there. And especially if you go back then to the introductions channel, you can see them introducing themselves, and you can read a little bit more about them or look up information in their bio for the Slack. So lots of places to look for sure.
It's truly unfortunate that the Goldwater Foundation didn't start a community like this in 1989 when the first scholarships were awarded. But we're looking and trying to identify Goldwater scholars from those earlier periods and adding them to the list as we find.
Yes, yes, completely right. Awesome. So we're coming up just about end of time. Are there any other questions? And as you put in your last question, I just want to say this was our first time using Twitch. So please let us know how it went. Did it go smoothly? Were there lags? Did the audio work out? Let us know, and so we'll be able to improve on in the future, or maybe switch platforms if needed. But from my end, it seems that it went fairly well. I don't know if you guys noticed before. Maybe my internet had a few glitches, but I think more or less it worked out. So yeah, other than that, any last questions that any of you want to answer?
On behalf of the foundation, I welcome you to the community. We're delighted to have you, and we're looking forward to working with you into the future.
Thank you so much. And yes, and go to the Slack channel GSC Future Directions to keep asking more questions. We'll be monitoring that channel, and let us know your ideas. Let us know how you want to be engaged. And yeah, we're looking forward to keeping the discussion going. Thank you so much.
We just got a couple more questions in really quick.
Sure, go ahead.
So there's one for Dr. Matea, and it says, can you talk a little bit about your research and how you got involved with Goldwater? So if I don't know if you want to take that, but
I can do that quickly. My background's in nuclear physics. As an undergraduate, I found out how valuable engaging in research was. As an undergraduate, it was a relatively unusual opportunity when I was in graduate school a few years back. And so I've spent most of my career trying to change undergraduate education to look more like graduate education, so that you actually are engaged in research from the day you step foot on campus as a freshman. When the opportunity to become president of the Goldwater community presented itself, of the foundation, I saw it as a way to encourage, to use the Goldwater experience to encourage universities to provide more research opportunities for undergraduates. If students want to be competitive for a Goldwater scholarship, they can make themselves more competitive by engaging in research. And universities know this and are providing more students with these kinds of opportunities. So that was my interest in becoming Goldwater president and how I got here.
Awesome. Anything else, Mariah? No? Okay.
I would like to answer quickly one of the other questions I saw on the Twitch chat, which is from Sheely. Hey, is there any talk of a creative/reflective publication of works by scholars? So I'm partly answering that because I'm a professional writer myself, and that's actually one of the ideas I proposed like several months ago. It's always been in the back of my mind because I would love to create like an artistic or creative journal just for us. We currently haven't been doing that because we've had to prioritize things in the past several months. So right now, the things on the forefront of our mind are social media and really getting this 2021 summit getting set up. But I'm very willing to continue that conversation on the Slack channels. So we can definitely talk about that in the future.
I just have like one more thing piggybacking off of Linda really quickly. She talked about prioritizing. So all of us are students, except for Dr. Mateja, but all of us are students. So we know the struggle. We know that we have like school, we have exams, we have other things, other responsibilities. This is an extracurricular activity. So I do put a lot of my time, we all do, we put a lot of our time into this, but of course other things sometimes come first and we all understand that. So know that whenever you're applying for the council, that this isn't gonna consume you. But it's probably hopefully going to add to your student and scholar experience going forward.
And actually, I won't let it consume you. A number of times I've asked these students, you know, I know you have other things you need to be doing. And so.
Yeah, Dr. Mateja has been a great mentor and advisor throughout the whole thing, making sure that we stay on task, making sure we can achieve the most out of things, always backing us up. So we really appreciate him.
I like the work you've done, but I appreciate you have some academic work to do too.
All right, thank you so much. I think we're probably good to go. We're just a little bit past time. So yeah, thank you all so much. Also, if anything you want to ask, just either ping us on Slack or post something in the GSC Future Directions channel. Mariah just posted something in the general discussion. You can click it and it'll get you right there. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone, have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.